Normally, I don't do voiceover videos, but I wanted to explain this one a little before we dive in. On stream, I tried my best to figure out how this game actually worked, and honestly, I didn't want the time with all of you to go to waste, especially since you loved Anomalous Coffee Machine. Yeah, I said it right that time. So of course, I had to dive into another SCP vending machine game for the channel, and this time we're going after SCP-261, because of course, there is more than one of these cursed things. In this one, we play a homeless girl, starving and alone in the streets of an unknown city. She comes across a vending machine in an alley, and right in front of it, body parts are scattered across the ground. But does that deter her? Of course not. She reaches down, plucks a fallen coin from the carnage, and slips it into a slot. The machine spits out food. It's edible, technically. Questionable? Absolutely. But of course, you need more money to keep buying from it so as not to starve. So out into the streets you go, begging. Most people pass you by, but a few toss you coins here and there. During my first playthrough on stream, I hadn't figured out the money system yet, so I spent most of my time begging, and not enough time actually eating. I experimented though. I tried eating nothing but seeds because, well, it sounded funny. Nothing happened. I tried with bugs, same thing. And the real problem was that I just wasn't eating enough of anything, which led to this nightmare. Oh God, I didn't know you could get worse. Holy f. Yeah, that. The starvation or anorexia form. Terrifying, but also confusing since it was the only thing I could get her to do. No matter what I ate, nothing seemed to change, and eventually I gave up for the night. But here's the thing, I couldn't let it go. Something about failing to trigger anything gnawed at me. It felt like the vending machine itself was taunting me, so I went back. Determined, ready to figure it out. I booted her back up and started playing again. It took me a while, but I finally got the hang of the money system. Technically speaking, you don't need to spend your whole life begging on the street corner. In fact, relying on begging as your primary income? Terrible idea. Trust me, I tried. That's when it clicked. These weird NPCs scattered around the city weren't just background flavor. They'll actually buy the food you don't want to eat, and usually for more than you paid it for. That's when the real game loop revealed itself. Beg a little at the start, then buy and sell like some kind of cursed Wall Street broker. Of course, every NPC has their quirks. The little boy, he'll only buy one thing a day. Stingy little brat. The old woman, half the time she doesn't even show up. And the starving man by the empty street, he's desperate. But if you don't give him something quick, he'll literally just lay down and surrender life. Oops. But then there's the odd couple standing next to the homeless man. They became my personal bank. Always there, always reliable, and a little too eager to hand over cash for alien bugs and bottled eyeballs. But hey, I wasn't asking questions. For the first time, I was finally making progress. And here's something I figured out about the food system. When you throw in coins, the machine spits out a random item, and then it actually shows you the cost of that item in the counter. You can only seem to grab up to 3 of the same item before the number resets, but it's super useful if you're chasing a specific food. It's still a lot of RNG, don't get me wrong, but at least with the right change you'll get a little control, which is huge when you're aiming for a route. Once I got the hang of not starving and keeping a steady cash flow and actually being able to target items, I figured it was time to pick a diet. And what caught my eye first? The drinks and higher priced foods. Sodas, burgers, fried chicken, basically the vending machine's fast food aisle. So I thought, why not eat everything that would probably give me a heart attack? Moldy food included. At first nothing seemed to happen, but then slowly she started to change. She got larger and larger and larger until she was basically just a heaving mass of flesh. Pretty gross, honestly. And despite spending nearly 2 hours feeding her this way, there was no ending, no conclusion, just a blob of misery. Maybe relatable on some level. As I was experimenting, trying to unlock the other forms, of course, the dev had to drop an update. New food, new forms, more things to chase, because that's just my luck, right? I finally start making progress and the game decides to expand itself right underneath me. So, obviously, I wasn't going to stop there. I took it as a challenge. Before I released this video, I was determined to hunt down all the new stuff too. But I didn't expect how much time it would take. So first I saw this image on the developer's page and immediately thought of a Manananggal separating itself, splitting in half. I remembered seeing items that resembled the unborn in game and it clicked. That had to be it. So I started eating every one of those I could get my hands on, but I ran out too quickly and began starving, so I figured I'd throw in a few normal foods as filler and still keep the transformation going. And oh boy, was I wrong. Instead of wings and severed torsos, I stumbled into what I'm pretty sure is the path with the most stages in the entire game. At first, she just looked like she had a rash. Then the patches widened, eyes forming in the gaps, tendrils slipping out from the darkness inside her hollowing body, and the further she regressed, the more it felt like she was being consumed, taken over by some eldritch creature wearing her like a shell. By the end, she was so disturbing that I'm pretty sure this one is going to give me nightmares. But the Manananggal idea wouldn't leave me alone. There had to be something to it, right? I couldn't just be wrong about this one, so back to eating like a cursed creature I went. Anything that even looked like a lump of cells with eyes went straight down the hatch. Sadly, I can't show you the full images of those items. Thanks, YouTube, but you get the idea. And this time, it worked. Slowly, she began to change, looking more feral, more unhinged, practically tearing herself apart until she was, without a doubt, a Manananggal. And honestly, I was pretty proud of myself for calling it. She looks terrifying, but also kind of badass like this. Next, I wanted to revisit bugs, because on stream that attempt went nowhere. I kept starving before I could really commit, and it turns out I was wrong about what even counts as a bug in this game. The routes actually seem to split into 3. First, there's the Parasite route, which oddly doesn't include leeches. Instead, it's every crawling nightmare you'd never want for dinner. Ants, roaches, beetles, all the creepy crawlies. Minus centipedes. Keep that in mind. When she hit her first form, she honestly looked like she walked straight out of the Chimera Ant arc in Hunter x Hunter. She would have fit right in, and 10A optional. Unfortunately, I couldn't push her further this time, but maybe someday I'll come back and we'll see the full line. Second, I figured out what the leeches were really for. The path isn't bugs at all, really. It's everything slimy. Leeches, slugs, snails. If it oozed, I ate it. And sure enough, that diet dragged her down a very different road. At first she was just covered in leeches, but soon she twisted into what looked like a horror version of Splatoon. It was at this point I figured the bottles of blood might help push the form along, but apparently not. Would have been kind of cool if they did. Opportunity missed. The final stage of this transformation line, though, she becomes this grotesque Naga-like abomination, and I truly, deeply hate it. And thirdly, remember when I said Parasite was everything except centipedes? Well, there's a reason for that. They've got their own route all by themselves. Thankfully, bugs are a low-cost item, and centipedes are surprisingly easy to farm, so this path was more straightforward than I expected. But the transformation? Anything but simple. By the end, she was more insect than human, and of all 3 bug branches, this one left her looking the most alien, the most inhuman. Unless Parasite is just as bad, but I wasn't able to see. Next up was seeds. The diet I half-heartedly tried on stream for the laughs. I mean, really, what's sillier than living off seeds? Especially apple seeds, when supposedly they kill you. But this time I committed for real. I pumped coin after coin into the vending machine and hoarded every seed I could get my hands on. I learned pretty quickly that anything under 100 yen just spits out a random handful of seeds, but the real money's at the 500 and 1000 marks. That's where the game clearly wants you to lock in. At first it felt absurd, like why would seeds matter? But on the other hand, why keep handing them out if they didn't have a bigger purpose? But then she started changing. Her body stretched taller, stronger, almost radiant. and then radiant in a way that didn't feel human anymore. It didn't feel like I was feeding her anymore. It felt like I was summoning a god who was still poor and begging on the streets for some reason. Yato, is that you? Anyway, after enough seeds, she just straight up converts into a tree herself. Branches, bark, the whole deal. Sadly, it's kind of a lackluster ending for what was otherwise a really cool mid-tier form, but I'm guessing that it might have some sort of cultural reference like the Manananggal that I just didn't know about. As I was working through the other routes, I kept noticing these bizarre items tucked in with the normal pull. A glowing soda, LED-looking donuts, rainbow fruit, at one point an entire chess set. They all had to mean something. So I went all in, eating like a crayon kid trying the whole box. If it was bright colored or just plain wrong to call food, it went straight in my mouth. And the further she went, the more twisted she became. Limbs stretched, features warped, her body reshaped by whatever dimension these horrors had slipped out of like some bad acid trip. Because good lord, what even is that? Unfortunately, I couldn't pull together enough of the rainbow items to reach the third form for this time. But hey, we'll get there someday. I also wanted to see what would happen if I stuck to liquids. The machine has no shortage of drinks, sodas, juices, bottle of water, so I figured, what if I just drank myself into whatever nightmare this one was hiding? So that's what I did. No solids, just cans, bottles, and whatever else sloshed when it hit the tray. At first, she just looked bloated, puffy, like she had too much too fast, but the longer it went on, the worse it got. I know there's a third variant to this form, but after trying to achieve it for over an hour, I had to call it quits for my own sanity. I also noticed that blood didn't seem to help this form either, so what does it actually do? That question's driving me nuts. And when I've got more time, I have to try it out, because come on, me being a vampire, a blood-only run is practically mandatory. Now, in the dev's latest update, they specifically mentioned alien route added, and that immediately hooked me. I had to crack the code. I started noticing that some of the items had really strange details. Packaging covered in alien writing, foods that looked more like creatures than snacks, and these weird glowing eggs. They didn't feel like a part of the Anomalous set, they felt otherworldly. So I made them my targets, anything with alien script, and anything that looked like it came off planet. As for what the alien form actually looks like, I still don't know, and honestly that's part of the thrill. This one's going to have to wait until I finally crack it, because no matter what I tried, she just wouldn't budge, even when I thought I had the key. As a bonus, I also found out that the Starvation form goes way further than what I experienced on stream, reducing you to basically nothing before you actually get an ending to this game and just die. Some foods though really felt out of place, things like the packaged candy gun and bullets, the odd toy-like items, a face-sewn pizza, and that dish of certain body parts I definitely can't show without getting demonetized. I don't think these are just shock items. My guess, the dev is saving them for a full-blown man-eating route, or maybe something even darker. But for now, who knows? Only time will tell. So, after all that experimenting, starving, gorging, bug-eating, seed summoning, and even drowning in soda, what do I think? Well, the game's definitely a challenge. It's not fully finished, and it doesn't exactly hold your hand. Honestly, half the time I felt like I was guessing in the dark, but that's part of the charm, right? The mystery, the nagging sense that there's something more hidden in the machine. And while it still lacks a lot of direction, the concept is strong enough to make up for it. Honestly, it feels like a sister game to Anomalous Coffee Machine. If you enjoyed that one, you'll almost certainly enjoy this one too. So for me, it's unsettling, frustrating, fascinating, and I'll definitely be keeping an eye on updates, because if there's one thing this game has taught me, it's that the vending machine is never really empty. If you liked this video and want me to go all the way, chasing down every last form and 100%ing the game, drop a like and let me know in the comments. This video took a lot of time to make, and if you want it, I'll dive back in for part 2. Thanks for watching.